with Daredevil number 26, a one and done King in Black tie-in, I believe. Or no, actually, I think the next issue is also a King in Black tie-in.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm going to say this right now. Black Cat was my current favorite King in Black tie-in. It had consequence, and it was dealing with what was going on with that certain character in the event. I think this one takes the cake. This to me is the number one King in Black tie-in at the moment, because Chip Zdarsky, without fail, has figured out a way to keep the tone of his current series and the tone of the event in sequence, and it doesn't. This tie-in does not disrupt his storytelling, and it doesn't feel like Marvel and the editors at Marvel were like, "Hey, you need to write a tie-in in your book." And most of the times when that happens, writers kind of be like, "Fuck, okay," and it ends up feeling rushed and not. It doesn't feel like the same story that you're reading, especially if they're inputting it into a current ongoing series. So I felt like Chip Zdarsky did a fantastic job of incorporating the King in Black storyline with his current book that he's writing.
Yeah, and it was it was a fun way to do, like, regardless. It's basically what you're saying, but not only was it a fun book regardless of tie-in, but like it feels like this tie-in could have some pretty big consequences in the story overall. Yeah,
so if you're not reading Daredevil right now and you don't mind spoilers, because we need to put a spoiler warning at like our intro of our show. We have spoilers. So if you didn't know, Daredevil's in jail right now, but he's still allowed to wear his mask, so nobody knows his identity. And so currently, Elektra is Daredevil. She is the one protecting the streets of Hell's Kitchen. So we continue our story on at that point. And so she is doing her Daredevil thing. She's having an internal conflict because Elektra, when she deals with criminals and scumbags, she prefers to kill them. She doesn't have a problem with killing people or taking lives to save lives. That's a weird way to say it, but whereas Daredevil, he's a little bit more remorseful, and the reason why he's in jail is because he accidentally killed somebody. So consequences, right? So anyway, in this issue, she's dealing with that. She's dealing with she's dealing with the internal conflict of, if she's going to be Daredevil, she can't kill anybody. So she's got to figure out a more creative way of dealing with criminals. And then we get something else. We cut to Matt Murdock in jail as Daredevil. And this is where I feel like the tone of Zdarsky's book really shined. Because he's talking about, Daredevil's in there. He's allowed to wear his mask, so nobody knows his identity. And the jail and the prisoners have issue with it, because once he serves his time, nobody will know who he is, right? And other prisoners, when they leave, well, if they got a felony charge or whatever, they can't just like go back into society. Like they are tainted with being a criminal. Whereas he has his identity still intact. He still technically has a freedom that all prisoners don't have. And so that dialogue between him and that prisoner I thought was really good, where he was, that guy was just like, yo, this is a vacation for you, basically. Like you're not really in prison. I just thought that was great. Like, it was just more classic Chip Zdarsky kind of having like this, he was having a dialogue about current, societal norms and how prison works, basically. And that you're fucked, basically, either way when you go to prison. Even, if you deserve it, obviously you deserve it. But, like, even the wrongly accused, they go to prison. And when they leave, their reputation is screwed, even if they were wrongly convicted. And I feel like this is Chip kind of, like, talking about that in a subtle way. At least that's how I interpret it. I don't know about you.
No, I see that exactly the same way. Which I think just shows you why Chip Zdarsky's run is being so highly praised for so long. He was somehow able to balance keeping the consistent tone of his own book, tying into King in Black, and having social commentary all within 23 pages. Is it's a pretty big feat that he accomplished.
And it's also, what I'll say is, like, it didn't feel rushed. And with a lot of these tie-ins, when Marvel does these super events and they just put in a tie-in through during an ongoing series, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's part of the story at all. It's like, yeah, I just got to get through these 2 books and then I can get back to my storytelling. And Chip he interweaved it perfectly. So after this whole little dialogue, we get the whole King in Black event basically taking over New York City. And I can't remember. I think it cuts back to Elektra, where she's fighting a symbiote. And she's trying to figure out, like, who to save, basically. And her Elektra instincts in the sense of, like, who to save and is it worth saving this person kind of kicks in. So she's dealing with that. And I don't know the name of Fisk's bodyguard. It's like Typhoon or
Typhoid Mary.
Typhoid Mary. So she's like her, like she's the muscle in his little security detail. And when everyone's getting corrupted by symbiote goo, when she gets turned, I was like, oh shit, that's gonna be weird. And so when she got corrupted and she confronted Daredevil, that was, I will say, who's the artist on this? Chichetto? Yeah.
I think so, but
dude.
Yeah, Chichetto. Well, Chichetto does the prison scenes, and then Mike Hawthorne does the Elektra scenes.
Okay, so then Hawthorne. Typhoid Mary, her symbiote her transformation, that was scary as hell. Like the way he is interpreting the nullification of characters, I really dig it. Like, I've seen some pretty corny ones. Like, I think the Union tie-in, it's pretty generic. But this is like, they really let him just kind of do his thing and really interpret how they got nullified. It's scary as hell. Like, it looks gross and like creepy and kind of how I imagined it really would go if it was real. So they battle it out. We cut back to Daredevil, and the symbiotes are taking over the prison. And basically, at the end of this book, Daredevil gets consumed by the symbiote and becomes a nullified Daredevil, and it is wicked looking.
It's pretty disturbing.
I mean, it was cool though, and this was almost my pick of the week, like very close. But that being said, this takes the cake for the current best King in Black tie-in. So I think it's Daredevil right now, then Black Cat, and then I don't know yet. But kudos to Chip, man. Like he pulled it off. He pulled off a tie-in with still keeping the tone of his current story, and it just felt like this tie-in mattered. It felt like he took time to do, to build it into the story. So when you buy the omnibus and you get to this part of the story, or you get to this part of the read, it's not going to feel disconnected at all. Outside of like, hey, why is Daredevil in jail? That's about it. But that's his story. That's not the King in Black story. I dug it. It was really good.
I agree.
All right.